I'm going to take a look at some workflow and file organization steps when working with photos using Lightroom. First off, get started, open up the program. It may already be in my dock, and otherwise I'll check in Applications and double click to open it up. Alright, first thing to do is bring in some photos to this Lightroom library. I've created the library already, but I've emptied it of all photos. So first thing, I've attached a memory card. I'll click Import in the lower left. Lightroom detects the memory card automatically. And let's review these workflow steps. Location the photos are coming from, the action being performed, and where they're going on the hard drive of the computer. I'm going to copy them from the memory card into my Pictures folder. I could also add them if they're already on a location on the hard drive, but in this case I do want to copy. All the photos are checked. I can select individual photos, uncheck them if I need to. I can have this Don't Import Suspected Duplicates checked, which will automatically check for if these photos have already been downloaded into the library, which can be handy. I also want to make a second copy of the photos, an initial backup. And I'm going to click here to choose the location, which is going to be in an external hard drive, and I'll just put it into that year's folder. So I will have a copy on the hard drive and on an external hard drive. Now I'll go down through these menu items. File renaming. I do want to rename on a date-based system. I've built a preset which uses the year, month, date, and a sequence number, and the extension, which is lowercase. Apply during import. I'm not going to apply develop settings, but I do want to adjust what metadata I'm applying. These photos were shot in Wilson Park, so I'm going to edit presets, working from this general preset, and add some location information to it. Under the IPTC image field, I'll put Wilson Park in Chadron, Nebraska. Now if I click up here, I can save these settings as a new preset. My general preset will stay unaltered, and this will be Chadron, Wilson Park. And this is handy if I do regular shoots at this location. Create that and click Done. It'll automatically be selected now. If I had a variety of locations, I could use my general preset, or I may need to have something else. But in this case, we'll use the Wilson Park preset. I'm not going to apply keywords yet, and I'll check the destination, make sure that is in the Pictures folder under the 2013 year, and it will be in January 9th. Now with that, I think I'll create a preset for this kind of import. Save as new preset, and I'll call this Chadron, Wilson Park. Normally I wouldn't go this detailed on my import presets. I might just have a Chadron preset that would automatically apply metadata for this particular town. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll go a little bit more in depth. Create that. Now whenever I bring up the import dialog, I can click this preset, and all of these fields will be automatically filled in with what I've just set. So I'll click Import and wait for those to come in. While the photos are importing, and I can check progress with the progress bar up here and watch as the current import folder gets updated. But while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to go in and look at some keywording options. This box here, you can enter individual keywords, or you can pull down the keyboard list. I've previously used the keyword park, so that's already in the list. I want to make a few fields in here to add. I'll click the plus button, and I'll say location, and this will be a parent keyword. Now this is a basic look at keywording, not an advanced look. And I'm going to create another keyword tag. I'll call that tree. I've got a lot of tree photos in here. And I will do leaf. Just taking a look at what I've got here. Looking for elements in the photos that I might find in several of the photos or even in just one photo. Let's see here. Close-up. I've got some close-up shots. Abstract, which is a fairly generalized concept, but it would work for some of these out-of-focus shots that I've got. Silhouette for some of these shadow shots, and you can go as in-depth as you want with these. And let's see here, I do need to add Wilson Park, and that will go, drag that under location. And then I'm going to create object, which will be another parent keyword. You can have as many parent and child keywords as you want. The system I use is using a capital letter to say this is a parent, and then underneath of that go the children keywords, which are lowercase. Now for these last four, I think I'll make one more parent keyword and call that concept. Building your keyword list is something you want to work on and build over time, or sit down and put something together that has some detail to it, something that's planned out. And I tend to use a little bit of both on those. So this brief look at keywords, we have three parents: concept, location, and object, and a few child keywords under those. Obviously, I could add dozens more based on just this one shoot. Looking at pieces, objects in the photos, bark from the tree, for example, twig, branch. You can look at all sorts of various details. All right. So the photos are imported and copied onto the external drive as well as the internal drive. So what I'm going to do now is take a look at file organization. There are different ways to organize the actual files on the computer. What I use in this demo is simply a date-based system. Under the year 2013, that day's shoot. I can also work with location-based systems. So what I'm going to do is click on this 2013 folder, right-click on it, and then Show in Finder. Now let's take a look at just building some quick folders to do a location-based organization system. I'll press Command-Shift-New to create a new folder, and I'll call that Nebraska. Inside that, Shadron. Now I can go, I'm also going to rename this folder Wilson Park. And I'll drag that into Nebraska, hold that, and then drag it into Shadron. Well, try that one more time, and onto Shadron. Okay. And I could go farther than this. I could have a Parks folder within Shadron that would have all of my Parks in Shadron photos. This has some advantages over a simple date-based system. It's easier to find various photos within the folder structure. Alright, so I'll close that. Now one thing I'm going to run into is that this folder location has been lost in Lightroom since I moved it outside of Lightroom. So to get around that, I'm going to right-click on it where the question mark is there, Find Missing Folder. And let's see here. Under Pictures, Nebraska, Shadron, and Wilson Park. Now if I right-click on this again and say Show Parent Folder, I see my Shadron. Click on that, right-click, Show Parent again, and there we have, be able to drill down Nebraska, Shadron, and Wilson Park shoot from that day. Okay, with that done, I'm going to take a look at some more of the metadata options. Collapse keywording for now and check the full metadata fields. Okay. You have different views for metadata that you can look at. I like to use the location preset here. Now, nice thing is these are already filled in from the preset that I made earlier. I could even map these. Add titles and captions. So I think what I need to add, since all the rest is filled in, is simply a map location. So I'll click up under Map, or onto the Map module. The first time I do this, I get a legend of what the various flags mean. I'll close that. And I'm going to switch to Roadmap for now. And let's do a search. Chadron, Nebraska. All right. Now I could leave it here as at an overall view of the city of Chadron, but I know pretty closely where these photos were shot. So I'm going to zoom in to Wilson Park and then check the satellite map. And the photos were roughly in this area. So I'll do a Command A to select all and then drag the photos roughly onto that location. And now the map has a flag saying I have 57 photos in that particular location. And I can even flip through them. That done, I'll go back to the library. I now have GPS coordinates and the map icon. Now clicking on this will take me directly to the map to that location. Alright, with that done, I'm going to apply some initial keywords to this, to the shoot as a whole. So I'll go to the keyword list and I'm going to select all the files because I know I've got Park and Wilson Park. Now I have a luggage tag looking icon that's applied to all these indicating that they have keywords. Now for the rest of the keywords, I don't think I can apply them all to every photo. Even though most of these do have trees, I'm going to have to be a little bit more selective. So I'll look at tree. Hold the Command key to do a multiple selection. And I've got trees here. That's a tree. It's just about all the photos. Still holding the Command key to select these. That's not a tree. That's a tree. And that's definitely a tree. And we've got some trees in here. Now in this one, the argument can be made that the subject is more appropriately the light pole, but the tree is visible enough that I'm going to include that with the key tree word, the tree keyword. Same thing with these shots. There are trees here, so I'll include it. Now I click on tree, and I'm going to hold off on leaf because I want that to be a little bit more selective. Go back to the top here, and I'll use those three and those. Checking. All right, and there's my leaves. Go back up to the top, and okay, we've got objects taken care of and location. Now I'll work through the concepts. In some ways, most of these are abstracts, but I'm going to be a little bit more selective on my abstract checking. That and that one. These close-ups of the picnic table and the metal work. Alright, so those will work for abstract. You need to have sort of an internal definition going for some of these, like what is your definition of abstract that you can consistently apply to photos. Same with close-up here. A lot of my abstracts would also count as close-ups, but I want to do a fresh selection. Close-up for those and those. I've used the word close-up and not macro, since macro is technically something. A close-up and a macro are not necessarily the same thing. And those are in focus, so I'm going to call those close-ups. It's the same scene, but the focus is different, so I'm not going to call those close-ups. And there we go. Close up. Head back up for my reflections. And I think that's all of the reflections. Alright, and that just leaves silhouettes. These what I think would count as silhouettes. They're close enough on that definition. Silhouettes for those, and those. And I think those can count as well. This is pretty close to a silhouette, but with that light detail, I'm going to leave that as not necessarily being a silhouette. Okay. So there's initial keywording. I'll collapse those and collapse keyword list. At this point, I'm ready to go through and make initial selections on files that I might want to edit within the develop module. Now there are different ways to do this and different ways to flag files as selects. Let's look at one way. I'll press the E key to go to loop view, and then I'm going to press the tab key to get a slightly larger view of the photo. And then just arrow through these and take a look and see what catches my eye. This is possibilities. So what I start out doing is starring these. Press the 1 key to add 1 star. You have up to 5 stars. You have color labels. You can simply flag a file as a select or maybe as a reject. You can press the B key to add photos to a quick collection. We'll take a look at that later on. But right now I'm just going to apply a single star to these. On first glance, they look like they might be worth looking at further. Alright, so there's an initial selection. I'll press the tab key again and bring back my side panels, and press the G key to go back to grid view. Now I want to just view my 1 stars, and I can do that through the filter menu item, attribute, and then click on 1 star. So now I'm only showing 1 star and higher. I'll press tab again and take a look at these, and then E again to go back to loop view. I think I want to take a look at that. And now click on 2 stars, and now we're getting a little bit closer. And I think from this shoot, this is the one that I'm the most interested in looking at under develop. I'll go back to the G key to the grid view and then tab key to bring back the side panels. And while I'm looking at these 2 star and higher photos, I'm going to add a few more keywords to them. I'm going to go back to loop view to get a better view of this. And I'm going to add a keyword under concept. Right click on that, create keyword inside concept, so it will automatically come under this parent keyword. And I'm going to call this narrow focus. And apply that. And I can go a lot farther on these, of course, adding more keywords. And I'll add a keyword under this, again inside concept, and call that out of focus. I think I'm going to add another parent keyword, and I'll call this time. Let's see here. Where did I miss that? Nope, I put it inside of concept. Cancel, and I'll pull that up. So there's my time, and under that I'm going to add a keyword and call that. Maybe I could spell it correctly. There we go. Now I could get into scientific definitions of the difference between sunset and twilight, but you know, I'm just sort of winging it. Hold Command to select both of those. Sunset should be. No, and this is an interesting issue with Lightroom. Notice I clicked on both of those to apply sunset, but it only applied to the first one I selected. When you're in loop view, you run into that. So I'm going to press the G key back to the grid. Now if I select both of those, sunset would be applied to both. So watch out for that. It's a kind of an annoying feature of Lightroom that grid view is where you apply metadata to multiple items. Okay. And I'm going to leave the time off of those. Alright, so from there I'm ready to take a look at doing some developing work. And I'm not going to go into the develop module yet. I'm going to stay in quick develop for this. I'll go back to loop view and play with some of the controls down here. Of course, I could play with some of the Lightroom presets. Try the direct positive, for example. Sometimes these are interesting, sometimes they don't really do the job. And of course, more importantly, you as a photographer can build your own presets with this to fit into this menu. Well, aged photo is kind of fun, a sepia look. Now the black and white tone presets are a lot more of those kind of selections. Sepia tone, selenium, split toning, cyanotype, all those fun print filters. But a sepia tone is kind of fun. I think I'll keep the sepia tone. Normally I go, it's not going to do it, but I think it's a nice look for this. I try auto tone. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I say that doesn't really give me much, so I'm going to go edit and undo auto tone. Maybe push the exposure up. Well, maybe not that much, maybe just a little bit. And I'm going to reduce the contrast. Drop highlights a little bit to kind of tone down this bright area. And darken shadows a little bit. Notice how if I press the outside arrows, it applies the effect to a larger degree. Let's bring the whites up a little bit and bring the highlights down some more. The whites affect the upper end of the tonal scale. The highlights affect slightly lower. If we look at this being from dark to light. And I'll apply some blacks, give that a little bit of a sharper cutoff in the darks. All right. And a little clarity, why not? Or a lot of clarity. Oh, that's fun. Now I notice here that vibrance is disabled. The reason is, when I applied this tone preset, Lightroom switched the photo to black and white instead of color, and when it does that, we lose the vibrance controls and later the saturation controls under develop. The toning here is a split tone that is controlled through the develop module, but I'm not going to take a look at that in detail yet. So this is a look at using the Lightroom presets and then tweaking that preset a little bit. Now I'm going to take a look again at some metadata for this. Since I've gotten a photo chosen, I'm going to work on applying a title and some descriptive information about it. So the title will be something artistic, something that sounds reasonable. Focus on leaf. Why not? Something like that. You know, as creative or uncreative as you want to be with it. Now, the description here can be along the lines of a journalistic cut line, could be a description of the photo, you know, what went into it, the decisions that were made. For our purposes, we're going to look at a discussion of choices made during the shoot and during post-processing. All right, so there is a fairly decent-sized description of some of the decisions I made during the shoot and in editing. With that, location, description, title, develop settings taken care of, keywords taken care of, I'm ready to export this and put it onto the web, Facebook, uh, what have you, send it off for printing. So I'm going to take a look at exporting this to a location on the hard drive first of all. I could set up a publish service, but I'm not going to do that. Although, if I want to put this out on Facebook, I can indeed set up a dedicated export path or publish path to Facebook. And then you can get more publish services, I should say, through Adobe. For example, if you use SmugMug, you can get a SmugMug publish service. I'm going to go up to File and Export, and this photo is still selected, so it's going to be the photo to export. Now I've already built an export to JPEG preset, so I'm going to review that. In this case, the photo will go into the same folder as the original, add to the catalog, so it will automatically show up in Lightroom, and then add to a stack above original, so it will appear with the original raw file. I'm going to change this to say below original, and then ask me what to do if there is a JPEG of this already in the folder. I'm not going to rename it. I'm going to use the existing name. Although it might be useful to add a suffix to the file name. If I was shooting JPEG files to start with, then I would have to add a suffix anyway, or something different in the file name, so that it doesn't try to overwrite the original JPEG. Not a problem in this case since I'm using NEF files, raw files, but it would be a good idea to take a look at this. So I'm going to edit this and then just add the phrase edit. I can also add other bits and pieces from file information, metadata, what have you. But this is just going to be custom text. So it will be the original file name and then the phrase edit and then JPEG. I can also save this as a new preset. That's the thing, Lightroom, tons and tons of presets that you can build. So I'm going to call this file name plus edit. Done there. And I can use that preset. Nothing with video, since it's not a video file. Export to a JPEG with the sRGB color space at 80% quality. And that will give a decent looking file. I'm not going to resize it for these purposes, but I am going to sharpen for screen. And I am not going to remove any location info, and I'm going to send out all the metadata with the file. While I'm here, I'm going to take a look at adding a watermark to the photo. So I'll check watermark. I can do a simple copyright, but I want to edit this to make sure it looks the way I want it. Now to start with, this is the default for Lightroom. Not bad, but I do want to tweak this just a little bit. Basically move this up a little bit to give some margin. You can choose the font, alignment, color, what have you, add a shadow to it. The drop shadow presets work pretty well. Watermark, I'm going to drop that to 90% opacity instead of 100, so it'll be very slightly transparent. Proportional, 10% of the entire image. I can also fit, which is generally not going to be very useful, or fill. So the proportional setting is going to work pretty nicely. And I'm going to inset that, let's see, what, 2 units horizontally and 1 unit vertically. That should be percent, but I'm not positive. And then I can decide what corner to put that in. Lower left, that seems to work pretty well. And I can adjust the text. So I might do a full copyright statement along with the year. And once again, save these settings as a new preset. And I'll call that Daniel Migren 2013. Okay, so it will apply that watermark preset to the image. All right. Now, since I've modified this existing preset, I need to right-click on it and update that. Update with current settings. So now, export to JPEG 80%. We'll have the watermark and the stacking that I adjusted, and the file name that I adjusted. So in the future, all I have to do is click on this to get all of these settings. Export. Progress dialog comes up on the upper left-hand corner of Lightroom. Task completed. Now I'll go back to grid view, and there is the exported file. If I click on this, it collapses the stack. Bring that back, and we have both photos in the stack, the original RAW file and the exported JPEG. If I click on that in loop view, there's my copyrights statement. So this is 10%, and this is probably a little bit larger than I'd like. So I could go back and tweak this to be maybe 8% or 5% instead of 10, but I'll leave it there for now. So that's a look at some workflow steps and file organization steps within Lightroom.